Check out the Full Press Hockey Podcast with Jim Biringer, the best in the business. It's going to be great.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Full Press NHL Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Biringer, voice of Full Press Hockey. I'm joined once again by the great Russ Cohen. Catch him at sportsology.com, NHL Draft Buzz, SiriusXM NHL Network Radio every Tuesday, and also Off the Post Podcast does a great job. Russ, welcome back.
Hey, thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
Hey, we were talking on Twitter, the big thing, Four Nations Faceoffs coming up, Four Nations Cup. Everybody's talking about Canadian goaltending, and we're going to talk goaltending around the league. But, the point was made up about Marc-Andre Fleury and, should he be considered for this team? Obviously, one of the goalies right now is Jordan Binnington. He's playing against New Jersey Devils, and he's playing. He's in one of those zones where, if he's in that zone, he can win.
Oh, yeah.
But do you think having Fleury on the team would be a good idea for Team Canada?
I mean, it's not a bad idea. I just don't think he's going to be the guy. I don't think he'll be the one or the two. I mean, I just think, he'll be on the team. But to say, like, the way I felt like it was being used on Twitter was kind of like, yeah, he'll be the guy. And it's like, he's not.
No, I agree with that. I don't think he'll be the guy. I mean, just because, the tournament's in Montreal and Boston, and the fact that it's Montreal, Fleury, the bump there, you have him on the team. Like, maybe he gets a game if somebody gets hurt or something. But to have that presence in the room as a third guy in a short tournament, I don't see why it wouldn't hurt.
I mean, although you could use the frame of reference that, well, they're going to steal the cord and, say he's a Canadian. That's fine. Once upon a time, I believe we stole an ice dancing team for the Olympics from Canada to the U.S., right? So it happens. But sometimes you want a younger goalie as like the third goalie. So this way that guy's kind of like getting onboarded for the Olympics. Like Fleury's been there before. Like, so it's like if they don't think he's going to play it, if it's DeCord and Binnington, he's really not going to play.
No, that makes sense. And I believe we also, I think the Americans also took Brett Hull once upon a time ago as well.
Brett Hull, they didn't take him. He just switched.
Yeah.
He was just fed up. Yeah, he was fed up. He got pissed off, and he just switched sides. That's all he did.
Yeah, he just switched sides. So, I mean, like the court, that'd be a good option. I know Logan Thompson's name's been out there as well. There's a couple other guys, but Aiden Hill as well, his former running buddy.
I don't think Aiden Hill will be
No, I don't think so either. I just think, like, if you look at it, right, you say to yourself, all right, Marc-Andre Fleury, he's veteran. He's been there last season. But like you say, we've seen at the World Juniors, we've seen at these World Championships, you bring that young guy in because he may play at the next level or the next event, or just have him there to gain experience.
Yeah, and so, I'm not sure who that might be right this moment, but, these guys know. They're looking around, and so they may be better off doing that. Or it could be Tristan Jarry, who's just, younger.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that one. I mean, again, I'm not in the room. They probably have all this stuff already.
You gotta remember, with a different team in front of them, Jarry will look better too.
Right, that's right. And Canada puts, like, everybody knocks on, the rosters and the goalies and everything.
I know he's in the AHL too. For the people that are gonna be like, Russ is in the AHL. I'm not saying he's going to play, but I'm saying he's still a Canadian goalie of the future. And if he gets his act together, he was a pretty good goalie. So I don't think he's done for his career or anything. And I think, he still could be a third goalie.
No, it's a very fair point. And you look at Canada up front, right? And you go back to the times when they won the Olympic goals. Like, yeah, Carey Price was a net, but that defense and the guys in front of them outworked everybody. So everybody's like saying, oh, Team USA, give them the gold on paper. I'm not so sure about that.
Right. I mean, you never give it to them, but look, they have the best goaltending for sure. I mean, that would be a shock if they didn't. I mean, Hellebuck's just all world at this point. The other guys may not even see any ice. It may just be all Hellebuck. And that's fine. But, going back to 2010, the reason I did chime in on Twitter about that is because I'm working on a book on the greatest goals of all time. So the Golden Goal with Sidney Crosby happens to be present in my mind, and so I did just write about it. And Luongo did take the place of Martin Brodeur in that series, and so and Brodeur was older, not by a ton, but he was older, and so it's tough to be an older goalie in these kinds of tournaments. That's what I'm basically saying. It started to change right around that time, actually, where you couldn't just go with the incumbents anymore.
No, we saw that too. I mentioned too. We were talking 2002 Salt Lake. Marty Brodeur took it away from Cujo. Cujo had been an established guy, a little older, and Brodeur was just in his prime at that time.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and that is how it goes sometimes. But I don't know how excited fans are for it yet, but I feel like there's something building, but it might just be us in the media. Like, I don't know if, I don't see ads for it anywhere. I don't see anything. Maybe it's going to take that whole kickoff with the rosters getting announced.
I think so. And then you have the Winter Classic and everything, you feed into that. And,
right.
And I know, I see everybody complaining about guys getting hurt, but it doesn't matter to me. Guys can get hurt in any international tournament they play in, whether it's NHL-based, WIHF, World Juniors, World Championships. Guys can get hurt.
The guys want to play in this because they're representing their countries. They want to.
Yeah, I agree. I think I got a question for you. I posed this one. I listen to, because I listen to programs a lot, and I hear everybody talking about down the middle. Do you see Jack Hughes as the third line center for Team USA?
Yeah, he's going to be a center for them. I don't know if he's going to be third line, but he could be.
Okay, because it just.
I know if you're thinking Matthews, Eichel, yeah, he could be third line center.
I know because it's more of a defensive role, and I know his defensive game is really taken off under Sheldon Keefe.
Yeah, but it's the Olympics. They don't, and it's not even the Olympics. I call it the Olympics, but it's four nations, so I think it's not going to be played exactly that way. So I think Hughes would be fine there.
Okay, just double checking with you because I went in my mind, and I'm like, well, you could put him on the wing because you could probably have another guy that could play.
I mean, there are going to be some centers that play the wing. There are.
Yeah. No doubt, for sure. And then you think about it, and you look at guys. We talk about Team USA, and you bring up one of the guys that have already been there. We talk about when the rosters were first announced at the draft, like the first 6, the initial 6, Adam Fox's name was on there. And oh boy, the New York Rangers, what came out Monday about they want to go into a rebuild and not rebuild, but they want to shake a lot of things up there. I just want your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's talk. I mean, Kreider just had his contract changed to a 15-team no trade. That's not easy. I mean, I don't think that's going to be a simple thing to do. And so we'll see what happens with that. I think they're falling back on old habits with the Rangers, saying we're going to shake it up because things aren't right here. I mean, it's more of a function, I think, of Peter Laviolette being less effective in his second year, which happens a lot with Peter Laviolette teams. That's just the thing. So I think that's something, but I also think it's just the Metro is this good now that the Rangers might be in that spot. I picked the Devils to win the Metro, and I stand behind that. I think Washington, I picked them to make the playoffs, and they're even better than what I thought. And so, if you look at, who's there, and Carolina's playing great, even better than I thought. So where are the Rangers exactly going to fall in anyhow? This might be where they fall in. So, and they played a few less games than some of the other teams. I just think they're trying to kind of get them going, but I think some guys could get traded. I think Kakko could get traded. I think there's some other things that could happen. So yeah, I mean, they're just trying to wake them up. They're currently ahead against Carolina, so maybe it's working, but I don't know if there's any real traction with it.
No, but you go back to the summer, right? And we were there in Vegas, and we heard all the noise and the rumblings about potential trade of Trouba to Detroit, and and it doesn't happen. And like you said, players have rights.
He holds the hammer on that one. So
exactly, like Kreider holds the hammer. They both have, I believe, 15-team no trade clauses, so they really control where they go. But the thing is now okay, that happened. If you didn't really want him there, or you felt that the leadership needed to change, maybe you shouldn't have had him be the captain coming into this season, because then all we hear is, oh, it's the last crack for this team, when this team is still relatively in a window where they can still win.
Oh, sure. Yeah, there they are. I think it's just it's not clicking great. And sure, Zibanejad got off to a horrible start. He's playing a little better lately. They've had some injuries. The Hedl stuff is always a little worrisome because he's an important guy for them, because their top 6 is really good, and then it does fall off, and their defense, look, Keandre Miller, I'd be worried. I don't know how much of a long-term deal they should give him. They might have to bridge him and just take their chances, because I don't think I'd give him a long-term deal. He just hasn't earned it yet. So you look at all that and you're like, yeah, there's some problems, but it's not like they're in a bad spot right now. They're just not used to the spot that they're in. That's what I think's bothering them. And they've had some bad losses, recently. But if they beat Carolina and they go into Philly on Black Friday, it'll probably die down a little bit.
But still, you think like a guy like Miller could be moved?
No, I think they'll just bridge him. I don't think they're going to move him. Their defense isn't deep enough to think about moving him. I think what's amazing this year, and I had to double check on the stats. I mean, Adam Fox has 17 points, but he has no goals, which is crazy.
Right, and Kreider's got 9 goals and 0 assists, so it's
right.
It balances that itself somewhere. But mentioned like a guy like Lindgren too. He's UFA. Could that? I mean, obviously they'll probably be in the playoff picture, but they have to think about
they
that.
Can't trade him because of that. Like that, they'll keep Lindgren there for Fox's sake. They have to. I think they should sign him regardless. I get that he has an injury history, but he keeps playing. He's kind of like Kevin Lowe was that way. I mean, Kevin Lowe would always play too. He wasn't the biggest guy, but he was good at his position and he was kind of a vital part. They seem like, they might move on from him. And if they do, he's just going to end up walking at the end of the year.
And then obviously the other distraction in the room, Igor Shesterkin wants to be the highest paid goalie. They haven't come up with a deal yet. Where do you think that lands?
Yeah, I think they will come up with a deal, but I have to believe it is a distraction. And I think Chris Drury should look at getting that done before he worries about, some of the other stuff. Because I'm sure, if you're a player and you're thinking about extending or, you're in your last year, next year, and you don't know if Shesterkin's coming back, you can't be feeling too great about things right now. So I think they have to lock that up. I think they will. I think it's just a matter of, is it 11.5? Is it 12.5? Like, I think, and then just the amount of years. And they're going to give him 8. I'd be shocked, unless he wants only 5, like a Matthews, because he thinks he can get another good deal. That's fine.
Nice. Yeah, no, it makes sense because you look at the way he plays and you look at the way they play, and it just makes the case for him. Be like, I am the team. I'm the team. I'm saving. And Jonathan Quick's been doing it too this year too, saving their bacon a lot.
The last game was really bad, but mostly been great. So
but it's just like it makes his case even stronger to be like, I deserve to be the highest paid guy because right now, without me, you're probably not winning a lot of these games.
Right. Oh, yeah. There's no question. I mean, you could look at GSAA and things like that, and you can see how valuable Shesterkin is. So, he's not going anywhere.
No, I agree. But speaking of another player that may not be going anywhere, Sidney Crosby, Pittsburgh Penguins, a lot of noise. Everybody seems to want to put him to Colorado or another place, get him out of Pittsburgh. My gut tells me he's going to stay. What do you think, Russ?
Well, I mean, saying Colorado is just because of Nick McKinnon. It's just, I don't think it's happening. I think he's staying. I think he knows he's won already. He signed the deal that he signed. I think he's going to try and will that team in the playoffs. It's not going to work. But I think in the end, he kind of knows what the deal is. Sidney Crosby's smart. I think he wants the legacy there. I think he, wants it just like Mario wanted it. And, he had his time and he'll be a top 5 guy. And probably in scoring in league history, and he'll be okay.
Yeah, but looking at the Penguins, what they did, Tomasino, they acquire him, they move out Lars Eller. Do you see them moving other parts and trying to start to get this rebuild, or is Kyle Dubas too handcuffed by ownership and that competitiveness?
He is handcuffed to some degree, and probably has to check with them. But I'm sure at some point ownership's just going to give in because it's going to be like, all right, I see that we're just not here. I think they're going to have to trade somebody big, though, if they really want to get some return. So I think it's going to have to be someone like Malkin. I could see Letang staying because of also the legacy thing. Not that Malkin shouldn't have a legacy there, but Malkin's still worth more than Letang is at this point. I think that's why.
And then the contract for Malkin, right? I think he only has a year left, right? Compared to like a couple.
That's why if you trade him, team gets a little term with him. Kind of makes sense.
And he still can produce.
Oh, yeah. Malkin could produce.
Like he could definitely, especially on like a contending team, for a team that like is in the playoff mix. I think that would be and what is the cap hit? We're like 6.5, I believe, something like that.
Yeah, I mean that's reasonable.
Yeah, especially with the cap going up. So I think that's a good move for the Penguins. You mentioned the goaltending, right? You said Tristan Jarry and everything, but we look at teams that need goaltending. We mentioned Colorado. Who do you see like there that they could add to potentially help with their situation there?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's a bullish goalie market out there. I don't. And, I think, maybe Ananen's going to be the guy. I mean, I like Georgiev. I think he might snap out of it. last year he was good enough. I know everybody likes to rip on him because sometimes his save percentage isn't good enough, but he gets a lot of wins. Right now, this year, he was substandard, so he does have to pick it up. But, maybe Annunen will surprise us. I mean, sometimes goalies can do that. But if you look around, I mean, the Cam Talbots, what's really going to help them? I mean, most of these other guys aren't. It's not like the Devils are going to give up one of their two guys. They're not. The Rangers aren't going to give up one of their two guys. What are you going to get out of Calgary, Vladar? I mean, he's not really any better. Like, you're not really getting – there's no tried and true guy out there that's not older that you could really get to kind of go on a run with. So I think, you couldn't even – I don't even think you can get Gustafsson out of Minnesota, even though, they have Wallstead and they have Fleury. So – and Fleury's not going anywhere. He's going to ride it out. So, like, who are you getting?
Yeah, and I mean, like the talk last year, you and I talked on the program, Mackenzie Blackwood, we know what he is on a bad team.
Right. On a bad team, he makes 40 saves. He gives up 3 goals. But on a good team, it's a different story.
Right. And so the one guy, that popped into my head, and I was talking with somebody the other night at the Devil Predator game, and they said, what about Simeon Varlamov?
I don't think he wants to leave.
But would he be a good fit?
I mean, he could be a good fit for somebody, but he's not getting any younger either. What is he, like 36?
Yeah.
So I think he kind of likes it where he is, and then there's a risk with age. So, yeah, he might be the best one you can come up with. And to me, it's not great.
No, you might just have to play better defensively in front of your own goalie.
Right.
That's the same issue with Pittsburgh. Structurally, they're just not good.
I mean, Carlson doesn't. There was a time where at least he could do puck retrieval, and you could say, "Hey, the puck's on his stick. It doesn't matter about defense." Now he just doesn't play any defense.
No, it doesn't. And Carolina has goaltending issues too. Kochetkov.
I don't think so anymore. I mean, Kochetkov because he has a concussion, or whatever that is. But I think he'll be fine. I like Kochetkov. I don't think that's a real issue. And at least Spencer Martin's a capable backup.
Do you see Gibson going anywhere out of Anaheim?
No, I don't think he wants to. And he's having a good year. Like, Anaheim might be good by next year. I mean, they have enough young guns that you go look at defense, you go look at the guys down the middle. I mean, Carlson, I don't know if Zegras is going anywhere. He might not be going anywhere. And he's starting to pick it back up. I mean, they got a load of talent, man. I think, and, at some point Beckett Seneca will be there. He's a few years away, I think. But I think right now, I don't think Gibson goes anywhere.
Interesting.
Maybe that's an off-season thing, but I don't think he goes anywhere in season.
No, I think so too. I think so because of the contract and the term and everything that's still left there. So the Flyers, they have Matej Michkov. They're playing, so right now, but they're playing better. They're not at the levels as they were last year, where they were in this playoff spot that they finally came down. No, they don't have Carter Hart. What have you seen from Michkov since the quote-unquote controversial benching?
Yeah, he's doing more with little details. I think he's still getting sheltered 5-on-5 minutes, but the last game he against Vegas probably had his best 5-on-5 game, or one of them. And so, yeah, he's doing better 5-on-5. There are some times where he might become invisible, but he is always trying to set up teammates. I think a problem for him is that sometimes some of his line mates aren't as talented as he is. And so, he's trying to put them in positions that they're not used to and can't really hold on to the puck or don't score. Tippett is just like a black hole right now, and he misses the net too much. And if he doesn't miss the net, he's not scoring. So, those kinds of things are kind of hurting him a little bit. And the other thing is, at some point, I know he's a developing player, but at some point this year, you do have to start using him a little more 5-on-5 to kind of let him get used to it. If you shelter him the whole year 5-on-5, and let's just say John Tortorella is not the coach next year, then next year it's like, it's going to be like weird for him. It's going to be hard for him to do that right out of the gate. And so, yeah, it might not be the normal development cycle, but I think right now with this team, you can be experimental. I mean, look, if you're realistic and you look at them in the Metro, what spot are they really taking in the Metro? Who are they better than? So it's that last spot for 4 or 5 teams, and there's teams in the Atlantic, like if the Bruins wake up, they might be that other team. So, who are they better than? So they're going to be battling for 4 or 5 other teams for that last second wild card. That's what I think.
What have you seen from the young goalies for Philadelphia this season?
Yeah, Kolosov's pretty good. I don't know if he'll ever go down to Lehigh, though. That's the big question. We all say, hey, it's better if he goes to Lehigh instead of Minsk, but people are watching him from Minsk, and so like it's possible he goes back. He's getting his NHL starts now while Sam Ersson is out, but I don't know. Fedotov's playing better. Fedotov rather. What's interesting is like a couple of games ago he started to win, and people were asking him, "Hey, what did you change?" And he goes, "Really, not a lot," because he's an older goalie. Like he's 27. He's not gonna, they're not stripping him down and starting over with him because he's in North America. They're just gonna do little refinements with him. Where Kolosov is a much younger player, and so yeah, they're gonna let him bring his structure in, but they can work with him a lot more. But again, I don't know what he's gonna do. So right now, they might have a 3 goalie roster for a little while longer than they expected until they know for sure maybe Kolosov will take an assignment down in Lehigh.
Yeah, and then, there's been a lot of talk about Morgan Frost and his play and potentially being traded this season. Do you see that happening at all?
I think there's a good chance. I wouldn't do it. I see too much talent in the kid. He's still really good on faceoffs. He's still one of the most creative guys they have. But it's possible. It's possible that could happen. I think, maybe they would dangle out him out there for the Jiricek, potential deal. I think he is going to be talked about, and I think there's going to be probably 5 to 6 or 7 teams that'll want him. His contract is reasonable. He still has an upside of a possible number 2 center, definitely a number 3. He's going to put up at least 40, 50 points outside of the Tortorella system. And, John is the one that sits him, and it's hard to score from the bench. So it's like when he's in there, you can see there's a difference in the team as far as the skill level and, and what he can do. The other day, he got a nice deflection goal. But in the end, I do feel like if the coach gets his way, he's probably going to get traded.
That's interesting. I mean, and you mentioned the coach. Do you see John Tortorella with this team moving forward, or do you think Briere and company make a coaching change in the summer?
Yeah, I think it's possible they'll do that. I think he'll probably stay with the organization in some facet, but I could see that happening because I see that with the way that he plays, he's still playing or favoring too many veterans. And while he does play some of the younger guys he's playing may not deserve it as much as others. Like I said, Tippett's been really struggling. He's never gotten scratched a game. Forster has struggled a lot. He's not been getting scratched. So you just kind of wonder where that system is at. And I think we've all watched John long enough to know that it's not exactly fair all the time. He may differ with that opinion, but it's just, to me, it's hard to argue. But, he'll play a certain amount of young guys, but then, he'll play Eric Johnson for stretches just because he likes Eric Johnson, because he doesn't have to worry about him so much. But there's not much upside there with Johnson, and he's slower. So, I think Emil Andre got put in there just out of necessity, not because they actually were going to use him or planned to use him at that time. And he's been their second best defenseman. So I think at times Tortorella's system is holding back the younger players. And I think at some point they have to make a decision with that, because do you want to be rebuilding forever, or do you want to really just start letting these guys play and take your lumps? They have 2 draft picks in this draft, and right now I did my first list. It's on NHLDraftBuzz.com. There's a few guys I'm still watching that I didn't put on that maybe others have, and that's just because that's the way I do it. I'm one guy. I'm not a whole scouting service. But, but the thing is, by looking at it, I'm like, they need to get in the top 10 of this draft if they really want to get a game changer, or at least one good one, because they have 2 picks, right? Potentially 3 in the first, but it depends how that goes.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if they don't get in the top 10, let's say they get 12 or 13 again, and then, it's 16 or 17, you're going to get really good players, but you're not going to get that stud. And I just go back and I look at all these different teams, and, you could look at Makar and McKinnon and Rantanen. You could look at Hughes and, Luke Hughes, and, Nico Hischier now has even become better than I thought he would. You look at guys like that and you say, okay, Michkov is one of them, and maybe Jet Luchenko is one of them. If not, he's close. He's somewhere in the middle. Bonk's somewhere in the middle. But you need that 1 or 2 other guys with exceptional talent. Let's just say, for argument's sake, Luchenko turns into RNH. And that's a nice player, but it's not enough. It's not enough to make you a real Stanley Cup contender. So I think at some point, the team has to look at that, and as a strategy, not say we're going to tank because the coach doesn't want to tank, but maybe you do have to trade a player or two to kind of make yourself have to put these younger players in. And if you lose some points, so be it. But it's better to be in the top 10 than not in the top 10.
Like we're seeing with the San Jose Sharks, right? With all the young
Right.
talent and the core that they have. Obviously, it helps when you have Macklin Celebrini, who's playing really well, but they have a nice young core with a good coach that's just letting them play.
Right.
And
I think it's working for them. Not everybody's willing to do that. You look at Chicago and they're keeping Frank Nazar in the minors, and that's fine. I mean, Nazar will get his chance, but I understand why they're doing it. And so there's different philosophies with different teams, but in the end, those two teams are picking in the top 10. It's a guarantee. Yeah. And to me, if the Flyers don't pick in the top 10, that's a big mistake.
I agree with that. You mentioned David Jiricek before. Rumors been out there since the weekend in regards to him going back to when he was put into the minors last week. It's close. It's just not a matter of if, but when. Where do you see him landing?
I mean, I think he could land in Philly. I think he could land, even a place like St. Louis might be after him because they always like their big defensemen and they have prospects. There's probably still 5 or 6 teams. I heard the Sabres, but to me, I don't know. I mean, the Sabres do have a lot of defensemen already. It's like, I think the Sabres, would have to give up someone like Jack Quinn to do it. I don't know if they're willing to do that, but I think it's going to take that. Where the Flyers probably would give up a Morgan Frost to do it, and that's a guy, Columbus could plug right in. If you look around, I'm trying to think, Chicago obviously has a lot of guys. I mean, Lucas Reichel got off to a rough start this year. Then he played against Philly, and he had a couple points. But, that's a guy who, if they were willing to move off to get a guy like Jiricek to build up the blue line, maybe you do that because you could have Jiricek, work with Seth Jones at some point. Right now he needs to stay in the AHL and he needs to do well for a while. I think for a full year, maybe even more. But, he's scoring down there and he's comfortable, so just leave him alone. I think other things happened there that just, with the last regime, that just weren't good. He bought that apartment. Remember, we heard about that. Then all of a sudden, when he gets sent down, he's like, I just spent a lot of money on, I get that. There's the strife of that, of being a young player. He's just 20. There's a lot of potential there. And he's big and he has a good shot. I think the hockey IQ isn't as good as maybe we thought it was, but I think it's still workable. And so, yeah, with the guy like that, with those kinds of intangibles and the tools, there's going to be a lot of teams looking for him.
Just one, not scouting, but more of a draft kind of question before we wrap this up. I look at Nashville and I look at all the first-round picks and players that they've gotten rid of, and I say to myself, why hadn't they just let those guys play? Because it just looks to me, it's like you had so much talent, especially a guy like Dante Fabro or Tomasino, and you just let him go for nothing.
Yeah, there's a philosophy there that if you don't play a certain way, they just don't stick with you. And like I was hearing rumblings about Fabro for a couple of years, yet on the ice it didn't look that bad. I think maybe they expected more offense out of him, but sometimes that doesn't happen. But he was playing minutes, and I think he was playing decent enough defense. I think Barry Trotz is an inexperienced GM, and I think he took over and sure, he saw a team that made the playoffs and he went big in free agency, but then it's like, why? Why did you go big in free agency? Like, there's not enough on this team. And sure, so Steve Stamkos looks good, and I didn't pick them as a Stanley Cup contender or anything. I picked them as a playoff bubble team because I wondered, where it was all going to come from. And even Steven Stamkos goes to Nashville and he can't score to his degree, to the degree he's used to. So I don't know what it is. I don't know why guys can't do that. But there are some guys that just don't fit in. But you look at Ilya Tovanet. He couldn't score any goals there. And all of a sudden, outside of there, he's scoring goals. So it wouldn't shock me if Tomasino, if they start from scratch with him, that, they get something out of him. I don't know. I think Pittsburgh's going to have to wait a year or so for that. But I think that's fine. I don't get it. But the drafting hasn't been good. That's something they need to address.
No, I agree with that. And it does take some time for players to develop in the National Hockey League.
They did just bring up Svechkov, and he was doing well in the AHL. And so far tonight, he looks pretty good. So, it's a hit and miss, though, more miss. I know everybody has that list, and the list doesn't look great right now. But
well, I mean, some of those guys were traded. Like Seth Jones was traded for Ryan Johansson. I mean, that's a hockey trade, but again, he was just drafted when that happened. I think like 3 years beforehand in the first round.
Right.
So
yeah, I think but it's more bad than good. I'll say that too.
Yeah. Got anything to plug before we wrap this up?
Yeah, like I said, book with Matthew Blittner, who 50 greatest goal scorers in NHL and Olympic history. Maybe it'll be out December 9th. We're looking at that date. It could be a day after. Like, I don't know. We're getting close. We're putting the finishing touches on it. I still have a Philadelphia Flyers book, Images of Sports, behind me. If Flyers fans want to buy that this holiday, I won't say no. Got a lot of others to choose from. Yeah, Off the Post. We're on twice a week now, so people can catch that. I'll be with the hockey news soon. You'll find out what team I'm covering, but that's that's on the docket for next month.
Nice, very good, Russ. Russ, always a pleasure to have you here at Full Press NHL on the podcast, talking everything from Flyers to everything around the league. Great, knowledgeable man. Catch him Sportsology, catch him NHL Draft Buzz, SiriusXM NHL Network Radio, and Off the Post podcast, and get his new book when it comes out. Do it. Guys, take care. iTunes, Spotify, also on YouTube as well.
Barry Trotz, Nashville Predators, making sure you're listening to Full Press Hockey Podcast.